And I'm just curious, what helped you recognize in your life which patterns were no longer yours to carry?
I'm becoming emotional yeah. First of all, thank you for your vulnerability. And second of all, it takes somebody who says, bring on the pain. I'll process it. I'll deal with it. There was addiction on both sides of my family. I lost my father less than 2 years ago. And now I understand him with such a different angle and lens of compassion that I wish I had developed earlier. This whole knowledge that I have now, and I'm still learning nonstop. I think that at some point I was suffering from having internalized not only the suffering of both of my parents, right? As any child does, by the way. It's like energetic. Whether they talk to you about it or not, it's in the room. Because the relationship is two people or three people or however you are in your family, and the space in between. And that space is filled with frequency and energy because we're vibrating all the time. It's not cuckoo or new age. This is just true. It's science. I think that at some point I was suffering just so much that I was in my bed and I was suffering from eating disorders. And when I say that, I just find it so wrong to say it that way because it's not eating disorders I was suffering from. I was suffering from unmet needs that it could not express properly. And I was left with a void and a pain that I didn't know how to deal with. I don't care if it's heroin, gambling, sex, shopping, obsession with your appearance, whatever you're trying to numb your pain with is an addiction.
Welcome back to Coming Into Focus. I am your host, Helen Tansey. Today, I have an incredible guest, Sophie Grégoire Trudeau, and I am so excited to have her here with us. And Sophie is an author. She is a speaker and a longtime advocate for mental health, emotional well-being, and human connection. Many people around the world came to know of Sophie during years as she was Canada's First Lady, a role that placed her on the global stage and brought her into conversations with world leaders, change makers, communities, and cultures. Through that experience, Sophie has met and engaged with leaders like the Obamas, the Bidens, the royal family, and many others. But what stands out about Sophie is she consistently used her platform to bring the conversation back to something deeply human, our emotional lives, our shared vulnerability, and our need for connection. Sophie is the author of Closer Together, a book that explores healing, emotional literacy, trauma, and what it means to live more consciously in a world that often asks us to move way too fast. What I love about this book is that it's collaborative and it weaves together science, lived experience, and thoughtful voices to help us better understand ourselves and one another. At the heart of this book and this conversation is about slowing down, listening more deeply, and remembering our shared humanity. And I'm really grateful to share it with you today. So, be sure to stay around after my conversation with Sophie for the closing reflections on this episode. Sophie, thank you so much for being here. This is such a privilege and an honor to be able to have this time with you. And I know how busy you are, and I just so appreciate your time being here.
I thank you for saying that. It's, every time I get the opportunity to come closer to humans, especially like in a circle of sisterhood and women. I think it's just so necessary that like my heart is an automatic yes.
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, it's when I found out you had agreed to be on the show, I was actually doing a photo shoot that day and I was like, and I screamed and the makeup artist and Lori, who was getting her photos done, they're like, what is it? And I said, Sophie is going to be on the podcast, and they both were like, oh. And Lori, who's 55, was like, oh my God, I love her. I've read her book. I think she's incredible. And then Chloe, my makeup artist, she's 26 and she works for Breakfast Television. She does makeup.
BT, yeah.
And so she met you and she went, Helen, not only is she absolutely beautiful, she is like the kindest person.
Oh my God.
But it's just so lovely, when you get excited about someone and then you see that, and especially with women, when you see that connection, how they feel about other women, it just warms my heart.
It's sacred. And I think that we are intuitively wired to be like this, but we're taught differently. So there's something like I have chills when you tell me this, not because, oh, great, oh, wow, I'm taking the compliment. It's more about I'm actually being seen for my true energy and for who I am, right? Of course, the compliment is beautiful and we love getting compliments as women. It's great. Yes. But I just think that you can't fake this integrity and coherence thing. So if incredible sisters are seeing that I have zero BS inside of me, well, then great.
So one of the things that I always love to ask everybody before I start the podcast is if you are comfortable sharing your age, and then also, how do you feel about aging?
Like, you want me to answer now?
Yeah.
So I'm 50 years old, and I couldn't be more proud, softer and more tender towards myself. Sometimes, when the gray comes out and when I'm seeing my, skin over my eyes start sagging, like little things here and there, right? You don't wake up from one day to the other with like a wrinkled face or whatever. But, I just find there's such beauty. Like, honestly, often when I'll meet women who are aging naturally, and I can really look at the individual that I'm looking at without having changed anything to please society.
Yes.
It makes me want to weep because of three things. First of all, when a sister grows up naturally aging like this, it sends a message to the whole universe, her family, her daughters, her sons, her husband, the men around her, the sisters around her, that we're okay just the way we are. And I find that the system is it's bulldozing us, right? It's always telling us, well, you have to look like this, you have to act like that. And it's even worse because we're actually being rewarded when we betray ourselves. Oh, look at her, best work done ever. She never ages. So, and the worst thing is that women have been convinced that we do it just for ourselves. Why would we ever open our chests, inject chemicals? How is that? How does a 4-year-old would even understand this concept that women are doing this to themselves, right?
Yes.
And we used to kind of like be appalled by, geishas wearing very tight shoes to have small feet. I get it. We're not deformed in the same way, but we're still deforming ourselves in a very, very insidious way where, plastic surgery has now become a means for beauty instead of health.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think you would get this too, is that I think why don't we take more time and focus on our soul? Because I think when we come from that place, we just light up and we light up everything. And I think that I know for me, when I start to, like you said, go, oh my gosh, my wrinkles, my this or that, I'm like, okay, what's really going on here, Helen? Like, am I not getting my proper rest? Am I sort of not meditating enough and taking care of myself? Because I feel when we start to attack ourselves physically, it's almost like that's low hanging fruit.
Wow. Yeah. You know what? I want to be so truthful here because I'm trying to go back into my own body when this happens. Like, oh my God, all the gray's coming out. And every time I'm like, should I just let it grow? Right? Should I just go gray like all of a sudden? And then I think, okay, there is a continuum between coquetry, as we call in French, just, being girly and liking makeup and creams, which I love, right? I'm a woman. Some women don't, but I actually do like products and all that. But I'm very careful because I know that my skin is my biggest organ. So the way that I treat myself, there's this new field now called psychoneuroimmunology. And in women, this is like Dr. Gabor Mate's work, but we're seeing that women who are people pleasers, who are constantly trying to perform to be loved. And we are taught this. It's not our fault. We're being taught this by culture, religion, cultural standards. We have something like 80% more risks. I think it's about that, of suffering from autoimmune disease. Yes. So the way that we interact with our own bodies, if we're always constantly in resistance mode to who we truly are, first of all, we're not being our creative selves. And second of all, we're creating inflammation. We're creating a tension inside of us that is not a healthy one.
And I think that's what I loved about, one of the things that I loved about your book. There was a lot that I loved about it, but I love how it was this beautiful collaboration, how you wove in, science, the emotional wisdom, the lived experience, and you had, these experts on that collaborated with you. And what came through so clearly to me in the book was that it wasn't about having all the answers. It was about asking better questions about healing and about connection and about how we can live together as human beings. And when you decided to write this book, when you offered this to the people, what made you decide to bring this into the world and to do it in this beautiful way?
It came from two places. So when I wrote my book, Closer Together, it was during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it came from a place of pain and privilege. So a mix of both. So thinking, I've been a mental health advocate for like more than 20 years. I've had access to incredible experts, knowledge, educational tools. And I had been noticing through the years that either people who, worked around in that circle of psychology or therapists or yoga teachers, right, had access to this naturally, or people who were the actual, trainers or people who worked in the neuroscience field. They had so much knowledge, and it wasn't as difficult to ingest as I thought, because I was studying nonstop and I was so passionate about it. And I absolutely wanted to understand human behavior better, because on the co-political path and way before that, I've always been a human lover. I want to connect with human beings, understand why they behave and act the way they do, including myself. And so I decided I'm going to share this with as many people as possible, because self-knowledge shouldn't be a right. It should be something that we're taught from the get-go at a very early age, so we actually know how to regulate our bodies and ourselves as human beings. The fact that we don't teach this in schools is beyond me.
Yes.
And then the privilege part is there. And then the pain, my own transformations, what I was going through in my mid 40s. And, on the co-political path, always waking up and going to bed, knowing that the people that you love the most, there is always like a psychological and also like a physical risk to their safety.
Yes.
So, and then life, and then losing my father there, like everybody has a life, everybody's going through suffering and grief. But what I learned along the way is that the difference between trauma and suffering is constriction. We're only as sick as our secrets.
That's powerful.
So yeah, those parts that we keep solidified inside of us and calcified in a way, they can make us sick too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you said that in the beginning of the book. You say that we're one trauma away from each other. And I remember I listened to your book on audio.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I quite enjoy. I love listening to the audio, especially when you do it yourself. When you've written the book and you record it, I find it very powerful. But when you said that, I actually stopped and was like, "Whoa, that is pretty powerful." And my question with that is like, what does that idea mean to you? And how has it shaped the way that you look at other people?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. So it's one of the things that I share when I meet humans through speeches or whatever, at the supermarket, if we go into a deep conversation, right, is that we're all one trauma away from each other. And it's been about 10 to 15 years of using this sentence, and it resonates so deeply. Even when you just spoke it, Helen, I had chills again.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing that I realized along my path, and I don't know if that's what you realize too, but is that there's not much difference between human beings. Actually, data shows that there's Dr. Todd Rose in the United States wrote a book called Collective Illusions. And he's showing that, what we want as human beings for ourselves and our families is 80% alike to everybody else. So what's been happening is that we've diluted the truth, because the loudest voices repeated for the most amount of times have become what we think is the opinion of the majority. That in itself is an illusion, because 85% of the content that we consume on social media is produced by 10% of the users, and those users are not representative of the general population. So we're actually living in a collective illusion. So when it comes to trauma, remember that trauma is not what happened to you per se. It's what happened inside of you as a result of what happened to you. So how did you process the trauma of, I don't know, sexual abuse, mental abuse, being left alone, being emotionally neglected. It's not just something bad that happened. It's also something good that should have taken place that you never received.
Oh, I like that.
Yep. So think about that. So when it comes to human beings, we're all one trauma away from each other. From one dramatic event that causes the brain to change or whatever, one series of traumas that leave you hurt and you, depending on how you process it, it can turn into trauma. And then finally, something that never took place that you also never talked about, because if you asked for your needs to be met, you were either laughed at or you were told it's never enough for you, whatever it is, right? That in itself, when we keep it inside, can become, trauma.
That leads me to actually the next question, because you say something else which is beautiful, which is your emotional biography sets the muscle scale of your life, but your unwounded soul writes the ultimate symphony.
Yes. So it is the musical scale of your life,
The
not
musical
muscle.
scale.
Yeah.
Okay, the
The
musical
musical
scale.
scale of your
Okay, the
life.
musical scale of your life.
So your emotional biography, so how you're tuned into your own nervous system, okay, sets the musical scale of your life. So when you imagine those lines and the key,
Yes.
right, at the beginning, but your unwounded soul writes the ultimate symphony. I have chills just saying it.
Yes.
Because we come into this world with a set of genes, right? And like on a piano keys with 88 keys, depending on how we were raised in the environment, some keys will be pressed and some will be dormant in a way, right? They won't be exuded as your genes that come into play as you live. So nobody's broken in this world. Nobody's broken. And trauma specialists will tell you this. It's not that we're broken, is that we're trying to come back home.
Yes.
To a place of safety. It's pretty much just that.
Yes.
I think it's Ram Dass who says in the end, all we're doing is walking each other back home,
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of that, when you talk about it too, you talk about sort of that ancestral and generational patterns. And that is not easy work. And I know for me in my own life, when I chose to speak out about my abuse, I wasn't met with open arms. I was met with a lot of like anger and hostility. And it was through therapy and my practice, my spiritual practice, that I began to understand that trauma can move through generations, and that hurt often comes from hurt. And for me, I just remember having this deep knowing of like, you know what, this pattern, it stops with me. And I'm just curious, what helped you recognize in your life which patterns were no longer yours to carry?
I'm becoming emotional as, yeah. First of all, thank you for your vulnerability. And second of all, it takes somebody who says, bring on the pain. I'll process it. I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
And there was addiction on both sides of my family. I lost my father less than 2 years ago. And now I understand him with such a different angle and lens of compassion that I wish I had developed earlier. This whole knowledge that I have now, and I'm still learning nonstop. But I think that at some point I was suffering from having internalized not only the suffering of both of my parents, right? As any child does, by the way. It's like energetic. Whether they talk to you about it or not, it's in the room. Because a relationship is two people or three people or however you are in your family, and the space in between. And that space is filled with frequency and energy because we're vibrating all the time. It's not cuckoo or new age. This is just true. It's science. So I think that at some point I was suffering just so much that I was in my bed and I was suffering from eating disorders. And when I say that, I just find it so wrong to say it that way, because it's not eating disorders I was suffering from. I was suffering from unmet needs that I could not express properly. And I was left with a void and a pain that I didn't know how to deal with. I don't care if it's heroin, gambling, sex, shopping, obsession with your appearance, whatever you're trying to numb your pain with is an addiction.
Yes.
Right? So I think at some point I was suffering so much, and I can actually recall the moment where I called my mom to ask for help. And I kind of detached from my own self in that moment, and I became the witness of who I was. And the most tender voice came along and said, it's enough. you've taken enough now it's time for you to get out of this traumatic pain, right?
How old were you?
I must have been about, I would say, I was still living at home. It's hard for me to pinpoint
Yeah.
that moment. Like, how old was I? And I think I must have been about 20.
That's amazing, though, that you had at that young age that wisdom or that knowing inside yourself to do that.
I was a very intuitive child. I grew up with adults. I'm an only child.
Yes.
So I was very in tune to my surroundings, to people's emotions, because I had to be in tune in order to feel like I could be one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that also developed a kind of intuition that I had towards myself, but I guess I had to suffer first. And when people ask me what, I love poetry. I'll share poetry with you if you want, but people will ask me what's the line that you love the most, and it's so simple and it's not poetic at all. But it's, when do you want the pain, now or later?
I
Because
agree.
it will come. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what do you want to do with it? How do you want to process it? How can it serve you as a catalyst to become your best self? So I think we're a little bit obsessed with healing, when it's more like recognizing how to sit with our pain and what's really going on inside of us. What are the traps inside of us? Because if we don't know the parts of those traps, we're going to go back in that vicious cycle all the time.
You're right. Because the healing, I agree, because the healing also can be, again, another doing, doing, doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So what about just that? And you talk about it a lot in the book, about that stillness and just sitting with it and sitting with that uncomfortableness and just allowing it to, and you can't just fix it in one meditation series. I don't think, like, it takes time.
I think self-respect is slowing down and discipline. And if it's one thing that I'm proud of, because I tend to be too harsh on myself, like Sophie will never be enough, that little voice that keeps coming back, right? I really do think I'm very proud to say that I've been very disciplined with my practice in the past 10 to 15 years. And that mat and that nature has seen tears of joy and sadness and anger and whatever, right?
Yes.
But I've showed up again and again and again, and I intend to show up again and again.
Well, I have to tell you, before today, when I woke up this morning, when I was doing my meditation, a lot of, like, for me, sitting here with you was like, who am I to do this? Or I'm not
Imposter
smart enough
syndrome
to
as
sit and
women.
talk with
Imposter
her.
syndrome.
And I just thought, she said, yes, Helen, go with it.
Listen, sometimes I'm in like events. I just came back from the Middle East for events, and there's like big names there, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing there, right? And I'm like, wait a second, I've done good work. I'm a good person.
Yes.
People are feeling it, but I think women, we still have difficulty with sitting in our queen energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that we don't have to be perfect, right?
No.
We don't have to say the right thing or be the smartest person, and just being who we are is enough.
Can you imagine if from a very young age we actually integrated what you just said, that who we are is more than enough?
Yeah.
Yet younger and younger girls are suffering from, body image issues and low self-esteem, and social media is exacerbating all of it. And it's really an issue. We can't just see it lightly. It really is an issue. And when we see our mothers, as daughters, metamorphose themselves and dehumanize themselves to fit cultural standards of beauty or success or whatever, a lot of the times, people say, well, is it possible for women to have it all? And what does have it all mean? Okay, yes, a successful career, a great partner, being there for the kids, having time for them. I think it's possible, but not all at the same time.
Yes.
And not if you don't have a partner who pitches in either.
Yes.
So it's all a question of balance. But I think that we're being sold an equation that is very hard to solve.
And it's happening younger. I mean, I have boys, but I photograph along of young women, and at a young age, like they're 20 and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm like, you're 20, or they're getting their lips done, or they're doing these things.
We're seeing it more and more.
And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, it's preventative. And I'm like, preventative of what?
You're of aging.
But we're all like, it's a gift to get older. Why are you fearing this?
I agree with you, but it's not what they see, love. It's not what they see out there.
I
And
know.
it's not what they see boys getting excited with, whether it's from porn to magazines or Victoria's Secret models.
Yes.
It's just so unnatural and, yeah, dehumanizing, I would say,
Yes.
of our true nature.
Yeah. Well, and then if you go into it more, it's like because all these cosmetic companies make money off of this.
Oh my
Right?
God, money. It's a billion dollar industry,
Yes.
and still,
Yeah.
exponentially growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A strong theme throughout your book is that human beings want to connect and we want to feel seen. We want to feel loved, understood. Why do you think, though, that connection feels even harder now? But at the same time, we think we're connected because we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We have all these things that we think are connecting us, but I don't really believe that they are.
If you're going to help a 4-year-old who's in distress and you're an adult or, a big sister or whatever, what's the first thing you would do? Like Helen, if you had a 4-year-old in distress in front of you, what would you do? You're a mom?
I would pick her up. I would hug her. I'd say, what can I do for you and support you?
Okay. Are you moving slow or fast?
Fast.
So you're moving fast and you're telling the 4-year-old, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. You're going to be
No. Not like I would move fast to like be there for them, but I would, yes.
You would show up quickly, but
Yes.
you would slow down with her, right? Or
Yes.
him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
would you agree that love can only come into a relaxed state?
Yes.
So obviously we can giggle and, be playful, and that's not always slow. That's fine. And it's great for connection. But I do think that true connection only can really be felt in the nervous system, in our minds, and our hearts when we slow down.
Yes.
And when we look at how social media executes itself, it's fast. And it's diluting our thought process. It's constantly trying to attract us with another dopamine high. And I think that now in our relationships, we're looking for that same dopamine high. And unfortunately, Anna Lemke, who wrote the book Dopamine Nation, proves that unfortunately, when you're on high on dopamine, it's very hard for you to go into your relaxing hormones. Like it's like a seesaw thing. So relaxing hormones, serotonin, oxytocin, are now becoming boring to the teenage brain.
Mm.
And we ask ourselves why we have a connection problem. Not only the distance, because we're no longer nervous system eye to nervous system, which is super important. And the best people I know are the great huggers. Like they'll keep a hug for like 10, 15 seconds.
Yes.
They look at you and really look at you when they talk to you. And I just think that, well, it's not me who thinks this. It's actually the science of human connection, is that we actually need to feel safe with each other in order to trust and evolve on our own pyramid of what it means to become who we truly are.
Yes.
So if one, we don't know who we truly are because we're not educated on emotional literacy, we don't know how to regulate and create safety inside our bodies and our minds. And then on the other, side of the coin, we're not connecting well because we're living too quick, too fast, too soon, and we're being isolated. That's a recipe for the kind of society that we live in. I think people are more and more conscious of it, and we're ready to change things. And remember that changing a habit takes 22 to 60 days. So repetition, discipline, it doesn't need to be huge change, but incremental small changes a life and a mind too.
I remember that with my boys when they would get upset when they were younger. I would always say, where do you feel it in your body?
Oh my God. Best parenting tool ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they would stop and they would think about it and they would slow down. It goes, well, it's kind of in my stomach, or it feels like something in my chest is tightening. But it's like that slow. You're absolutely right. It's that slowing down.
There's no a detour to this.
No.
There's just not, right? When we hold a baby, when we're nourishing someone, when we're trying to calm somebody that we love down, calm them down, like it's always slow. It's not fast, quick. You have my presence for 2 seconds and then I'm gone.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I know your book is a book that I feel that can be read again and again because each time there's something new that you discover with it. Do you plan on writing another book? Is that something that is in your future? Because you're very good at it.
That's a good question. So first of all, thank you. What I love the most is when I'm doing book signings and people come in with all their post-its and their notes, and they're like, I refer to this part, to this part. I'm like, yes, because it should be not only my story, and I hope it touches you and you can relate in some ways, but it's about all the expertise that's in the book with those experts in conversation that people can go back to when they're struggling or when they're asking, like, how do I deal with this or that? So that's great. I am writing a second book, but it's for children, for parents to read to their children to start emotional literacy early, like
Oh,
4 to 9 years old. Yeah.
beautiful.
And it's about emotional literacy and children in nature and how nature teaches us to regulate ourselves if we're really in tune with who we are as children and we're playing outside, which is a reflection of my own life from like 0 to 5.
Yeah, because that's a big
Um,
thing for you. You're like you love nature, and you really use Mother
love.
Earth. Yes.
She's my ultimate muse, like my father used to say. She really is.
Oh,
Yeah. Every
wow.
morning I try to go. Even when I only have 15 minutes, I'll try to go.
You live in Ottawa?
I do. I live in Ottawa. I
Yeah.
think I might be moving to Montreal at some point, but yeah, I
Oh,
live in Ottawa.
'cause
Where do you live?
I'm in Toronto, and
Oh,
I'm down by the lake, and even when it's been very cold, as you know, and I put my snow pants, I put my coat on, I have my
yeah.
dog, and I can walk down by the lake. There's nobody out walking. I don't care, but it's so, and you can even hear like the cracking
Oh,
of
I
the
love
lake
that
with the ice.
cracking. I
Yes.
love that sound. I
Yes.
absolutely love it. And it's funny because where I go walk in the cemetery, there's always almost no one. And that's what I love.
Yes.
I like
I
just,
agree.
just being in space.
Yeah.
Like my ultimate dream would have to be a land where I have vastness in front of me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What sign are you?
Taurus.
Oh, okay. I'm a
Yeah.
Cancer. So we get along very, Cancer and Taurus are very,
Oh.
yeah, we nurture each
I
other.
think when we're growing older as women, it's our ascending sign who kind of takes over, but I wouldn't even know what mine is. So
Okay. um, so as we start, because I know that you've given me so much of your time already. Before we say goodbye, though, I thank you again for being here and for sharing your beautiful self with us. I want to offer you a moment, if there's anything that you feel is in your heart or in your soul that you would like to share with the listeners.
I think we have to go to the soul of poetry and to what poetry says. Yes, and you'll hear it soon because I will tell you.
Okay.
But also the silence between the words. That where the true meaning of life lies and where everything is suspended a little bit. This one is a saying from Rainer Maria Rilke, and it says this: I want to unfold. Let there be no space inside of me, hold itself closed. For where I am closed, I am false. So, to anybody who's listening and who is holding closed parts inside of them because you're hurting, because you're afraid of speaking up or how it would be received, the only thing I could say is there are enough humans out there who are ready to receive you as you are without judgment. And it makes you stronger when you speak your truth. And it's actually, I think, the beginning of finally witnessing who you truly are and being, in a way, being your best parent. Doesn't mean you had bad parenting, but to, as an adult, have the maturity to show up for who you are and hold yourself with tenderness and patience. I mean, just saying it sends chills up down my spine because
Yeah.
we're so harsh with ourselves, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is the perfect place to stop. And
I don't want to stop, but life
I know,
life goes on.
I know, but when you do your kids' book, I'd love to have you back on.
I would love so as
I wish
well.
I could reach through the screen and hug you. You are just a delight. And I just adore you and thank you.
Me
You've left
too.
me with a very full heart. Well, that was an incredible experience, and I didn't know what to expect with Sophie. I have heard her on other interviews and I have read her book, and I always had this sense of just what a beautiful soul she was, but having experienced it firsthand was truly amazing. And when I was sharing with Sophie on this episode that there was a part of me that was really nervous about sitting down with her, because there was this part of me that was like, well, who am I to speak to Sophie? Who am I to, interview her and talk to her, and that imposter syndrome and everything that came in. And what I did this morning is I did a little meditation, and as soon as she came on the screen and I started speaking to her, it was like this sisterhood, and all of my fears just dissipated. And I would truly invite you to read her book or to listen to it. It's one of those books that you return to again and again, and each time it reveals something different. And I really hope that this conversation landed in your heart the way that it did with me. Thank you so much for being here. Coming into focus is an invitation to better understand ourselves, to notice what we're ready to release, and to gently shift our focus back onto what brings us home to our truest self. Until next time.